issue. Let's speak to the Apprenticeship and Skills Minister, Gillian Keegan. Good morning.
Morning.
You know, something coming across from a lot of our listeners at the moment, more and more, not necessarily a majority view, but it's a clear view. We cannot go on living like this. This could go on for another year, another 2 year, another 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really important point. I mean, if anybody had told us a year ago the kind of rules and restrictions that we're living under right now, nobody would have believed it. It is unbelievable the impact that the global pandemic coronavirus has had on our lives, on our livelihoods, on our health, and everything. It is quite extraordinary, and there is a really important point, which is we have to learn to live with this virus for a period of however long that is, months, hopefully not years, but until we get a vaccine or until we get some game changer in terms of how we can manage it, we only have the hands, face and space. We only have how we interact with others as the virus is there all the time.
Gillian Keegan, this could go on for years.
Well, it's a serious situation right now. Okay, we're doubling cases every 10 days. What is it that we need to do right now? We need to get the R level back under 1 so that we can manage it in a way that we can still sensibly socialise, we can still see people. But of course, life going back to normal requires either a vaccine or some other type of treatment or, some other way to deal with it, which doesn't exist right now. There's lots of money working on it. There's lots of people working on it. But until it exists, and then obviously it will take time to roll out because this is a global pandemic, everybody will want whatever that is.
In the meantime, it requires people, I guess, to abide by your rules, your increasingly restrictive and arbitrary rules as some see it. Let's talk about students. Have too many students not been abiding by the rules?
Well, first of all, the rules are the rules that are advised to us by the science and scientists. So,
not in the case of the 10 p.m. pubs curfew. You know that's not the case because scientists advising Boris Johnson never discussed the 10 p.m. pubs curfew. It was never discussed.
What's being discussed is how to limit socialising.
And who attends the SAGE committee and others have said, we did not discuss this. There's no science behind it. So that's not actually true.
The science behind it is limiting socialising. Limiting socialising, we have clear evidence that what is happening is people, as they socialise, which of course happens, people tend to let their guard down a bit, particularly if they're in their own homes, but also if they're out and about as well. So what we're trying to do is limit socialising.
Closing the pubs. I'm so sorry to interrupt, but closing the pubs at 10 p.m. is not limiting socialising. People have seen the pictures over the weekend. Andy Burnham made the point yesterday. It's causing people to gather in the streets and then pile around to Gillian's place.
Well, the vast majority of people, let's say, are obeying the rules. So of course you're going to see pictures in papers and that worries people as well, but the vast majority are obeying the rules. But of course it does rely on us all to use these quite simple rules: hands, face, space, making sure that we keep to the rule of 6. In some areas that's been restricted further, but the rule of 6 and stopping our socialising before 10 p.m. That's where we are right now.
What about students at the moment, though? Should they have gone back to university as this giant petri dish for breeding the virus at the moment?
Of course, this group of students have had, been terribly impacted by coronavirus. They lost the last part of school, they couldn't take exams, they couldn't celebrate their leaving parties and their proms, and they couldn't go to the festivals, all the things they would have done over the summer, and they've missed out on Freshers' Week. So there is absolutely no doubt that they have been impacted heavily by this global pandemic. Trying to putting their lives on hold and saying you can't go to university, you can't go back and start that, even though clearly it's with restrictions. It's not the same as last year. Last year's students, this is very different for this cohort. But universities have put a lot of time and effort, and we should thank them for what they've done to make them COVID safe.
But people are thinking about Christmas, what's going to happen there. You talk about exams there. We had the U-turn, we had the school closures, problems with students with coronavirus at universities. Now I know Gavin Williamson is speaking in the Commons this afternoon. I don't know if you find him to be an inspirational figure but many don't. Is he going to address the student issue?
Yes, he's going to be talking about students and and particularly you just mentioned there about Christmas. I mean, we would expect students to be able to go home for Christmas, of course. That's something that absolutely we'll be working towards. And, Gavin will lay out more detail of that later on in the Commons.
Listen, we're going to, in the next hour, talk about your suggestion here that adults without an A-level or equivalent qualification will be offered a free, fully funded college course. I'm sorry we didn't have time to talk about it now, but we will be addressing it in the next hour of the programme. Gillian Keegan, thank you very much for coming on this morning. This is 5 Live Breakfast.